Shalom from Jerusalem. My name is Albert Wexler. I'm the director of Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast, and we are here at the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast offices in Jerusalem. Answers for Allies. This is the program that we have been running since the beginning of this tragic time of war. With me today is a world-renowned specialist of Arab and Islamic studies, and Mordechai Kedar is a very well, sought after speaker in many circles, and I'm really happy to have you here today.
It's my pleasure, an honor.
And you are an expert in Israeli Arab culture. You've served 25 years in Israeli military intelligence, so you know a lot of things that maybe a regular person would not know.
Well, once you master Arabic, you have the key to go into all kinds of sources which usually people who do not speak Arabic or read Arabic can be exposed. So definitely, I do read Arabic, I speak Arabic, I have many appearances in the Arab media because of this, which is a very small pleasure to face people who hate you. But I do it because, to defend Israel in one of the most difficult arenas, which is the Arab media.
Yeah. October the 7th, it took us all as a horrible, shocking surprise. Atrocities, the scope of violence, 1,400 people dead from Israeli side, 240 still captured in Gaza. Your take?
Look, first of all, it was definitely a failure of the intelligence. And I serve the intelligence, I know what failures are. When you live in a conception that Hamas are deterred and contained, and you build everything around this theory, they might not be deterred and might not be contained if they burst out. They deceived us for a long time that they are deterred by the Israeli force. They made face as if they want to have a nice state in Gaza, development, health, education, whatever we want. And we actually looked at them through the lens of the Israeli culture. Because we, as a Western-like society, developed society, startup nation, liberal people in most cases, people of the Western world. So we tend to think that everyone wants to have nice life, good health, nice education, good car, good house, and a quiet life. And we projected our mindset on them as if they want the same thing. And they actually gave us the impression that this is what they want, especially when they insisted on having 20, 30,000 workers come out from Gaza every day in order to work in the Israeli industry, in the Israeli agriculture, in the construction industry, whatever. And this actually gave the government of Israel and the intelligence and everybody who was around them the impression that all they want is to have a nice, quiet, normal, developed state in Gaza. While behind the scenes, they developed a giant army with weapons which came from Iran, with an real intention to arrange an assault on us when we are asleep, when we are not prepared. This was the plan. However, and here comes the big however, Hamas were not supposed to use all the weapons and the equipment and the training and the support which they got from Iran for years already. They should have waited until Iran would give the clue, means the order, to Hamas, to Hizbollah in Lebanon, to their militias in Syria, to the militias in Iraq, the Houthi militias in Yemen, in addition to the Hamas activists or terrorists in Judea and Samaria, and possibly the Islamic movement inside Israel. For years, they were working on uniting all these militias. This was what Soleimani was doing, then after him, Khani. And this is what explains the frequent visits which he visited in Lebanon, in Syria, wherever he went. He always met with delegates from Hamas, from Islamic Jihad, from Hizbollah, the militias, in order to convince them to leave out all the differences, because these are Palestinians, these are Syrians, these are Lebanese, these are Shia, these are Sunnah, in order to cooperate on one thing, the eradication of the state of Israel. I published a whole article about this plan, satanic plan, in April.
April this year?
April this year. Means 7 months ago. And I described it. It was also translated to English. You can Google it, you can find it. And this was actually, it was not new for the Israeli intelligence. They assumed, and they knew, what Iran is trying to unite them all for one big hit on Israel, because they all knew that Israel will not survive such a hit. Because if Israel has a barrage of thousands of missiles from Lebanon in one day, in addition to Hamas, in addition to incursion of infantry on tractors or whatever, SUVs, in the north, in the south, and capturing thousands of hostages, as they did in Gaza, near Gaza. They could do it in the north as well. And they could capture cities like Nahariya, Shlomi, Kiryat Shmone, Rosh Pina, which are next to the border. And this is what they planned. In whole assault, and this barrage of missiles should have destroyed Israeli electricity system, the air bases of the Air Force, the junctions, the communications, whatever. Israel would be paralyzed within hours. And all the storage of the anti-missile missiles, like the Iron Dome, would be exhausted in half a day or 2 days maximum, and Israel would be devastated totally. Nobody would be here. It would be a whole surprise for the whole world. And Israel will actually be gone within 2 days or 3 days.
So Hamas actually spoiled the plan.
This was the plan. And Hamas got all the equipment, all the arms, all the ammunition, all the support from Iran, and they decided to open a war by themselves. Means to leave the unity which Iran tried to create and to wage a war by themselves. Why? First of all, they assumed that after the surprise in the beginning, because they didn't tell neither Hizbollah nor Iran or nobody that they are preparing such an assault by themselves. And this is why Hizbollah and Iran have not joined until this very day. And we speak today. Today we are at the 9th of November. And the whole thing started 32 days ago. Means that Hizbollah and Iran factually abandoned Hamas, telling them, you started the war without us, the hell with you. Let the Zionists do what Hezbollah is doing with us on the border is nothing compared to what they can, based on their stockpile of hundreds of thousands of missiles. So this is actually the background of what happened. Now, why is Hamas started? Why did they start this war without their allies? They wanted to stop the Saudi-Israeli rapprochement in order to destroy it. Because if Saudi Arabia would make peace with Israel, let alone if there's normalization, all the rest of the Arab world and the Islamic world will stand in line to do the same thing with Israel. Because if Saudi Arabia, the leader of the Arab and the Islamic world, is making peace with Israel, who will stay out of it? And Hamas were afraid that if this happens, they will be ignored totally by the rest of the people who still care for them. Because the Europeans never cared about Palestinians. That's what they feel, because they have relations with Israel regardless of the Palestinians. The Americans, anyway, do not care about the Palestinians. That's what they feel. And now if the Saudis and all the Islamic and the Arab world will join the peace with Israel, who will be there to care for the Palestinians? So they decided to pull the rag.
Attack on their own, without any coordination.
Without any coordination, neither with Hizbollah nor Iran. Therefore, they abandoned them. They didn't join the war until this very day. And
Do you think that U.S. Military presence in the Mediterranean has anything to do with them not entering the war?
the American vessels which came to here, the Ford aircraft carrier and the fleet around it, came like 12 days after the whole thing started. They had 12 good days to start a war without the American fleet right across the offshore. So the fact that they waited means that they did not. Nasrallah, last Friday, had a big speech.
Everybody was waiting.
Yes. And the worst thing which is they said about Israel is that all the options are on the table. Means he didn't threaten, he didn't give any ultimatum to Israel to withdraw from Gaza Strip. He said explicitly that this was a decision of Hamas. We didn't know about this. They surprised us. Why? Because every faction of the Mukawama, the resistance, him as well, we are free to make our decisions. Iran is not part of our considerations. That's what he says in order to convince that,
that he is not a puppet, which he is.
Not a puppet, which he is, of course. But the fact that Hamas did not inform them about this was correct. Hamas did not inform them. He said that they did it in order for it not to leak, because it would leak to Israel. Israel would not allow it to happen, in order to keep Israelis when they are asleep, deeply asleep. So this is actually the background and what happened. Now, what they did is these atrocities, killed, but to slaughter kids, to rape girls, and to burn their bodies in order to hide the evidence. And, there are testimonies which, you can't even talk about.
No, well, they documented it themselves. They had their GoPro cameras on.
Right. And not only this, Israel now discovered that some photographers of AP, Reuters, CBS, I think,
New York Times.
New York
reported.
Times,
Yeah.
took part. Means they knew about this because they were with the forces which
Ready to go.
Ready to go. Means if they were there, means they knew about this, and this is something which should not be tolerated by the world media. Well, photographers who work for honorable media outlets take part in such an atrocity. Okay, so this is what happened, and unfortunately they kidnapped so many people and killed so many people. They intended initially to have a line of defense on the 232 road, which is the road along the Gaza Strip in the Israeli side. They wanted to capture as many people as possible in order to use them as human shields, and they timed the assault on October 7th early morning, because on that night and morning there was a whole festival, music festival, which gave them 5,000 more Israeli boys and girls,
Was it 5,000 people there?
something between 4,000 and 5,000.
Wow.
And they timed the assault to this. They didn't do it a week earlier, the first day of Sukkot, or of the festival. They didn't do it in Yom Kippur, 5 days earlier. They didn't do it on the Rosh Hashanah, which is also Shabbat. They timed it to October 7th, which was another festive, Shmini Atzeret, because of the festival. They knew about the festival. This is a biannual festival. It was already the 6th or 7th time. And they knew that these boys and girls towards the morning will be drunk. Some of them will be drugs, tired after dancing for the whole night. And there is another thing which we have to understand. These Islamists, Hamas, such an event of this music festival, they hate it. Because the music is Indian music, infidels music, alcohol, drugs, boys and girls together dancing. And what they wear is not according to the Islamic rules of clothing. And not only this, some people broadcast it on FaceTime, live broadcast. Now, everybody in Gaza can hear it because it's rather close to Gaza. So the boys and the girls in Gaza, when they hear the music, they go to their cell phones and they go to Facebook of the festival and they see what they hear. And the people of Hamas hate it because this is the essence of the Western music, Western culture, Western openness, Western, what they say, Western corruption, which comes to them. And to destroy such an event and to capture all these people who take part in this is an obligation from their point of view. And we in Israel, we didn't understand it.
So they planned it really well. They didn't
the
tell anyone.
preparations were like 2 weeks beforehand. You know, building the stage, the canopy above it, and all the facilities there, and the tents, and the parking, and everything. The preparations took like 2 weeks. And the workers, which Hamas insisted on sending to Israel to bring money home, actually were the spies to see if this festival really is preparing.
So they mapped everything, planned everything. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Exactly. And they knew that the Israelis, if they crossed the fence in one place or two places, Israel could take care of it because they had reduced forces. But if they crossed the fence in 20 places, Israel will not be able to deal with 20 places along the 40 kilometers of the border.
So how many were they?
At least 20.
That
20 groups which opened which blew the fence up.
And then how many came in? 3,000?
Thousands.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is why it was very hard to get rid of them. It took like 2 days of fight until Israel either killed all of them or they ran away with the hostages.
Israel did also capture some of them, did we?
Many were captured, many, and they gave information, they gave intelligence, and Israel caught documents which allow them to rape girls, because it's something which is permitted in Islam to use the women which are found in the battle. It was already since the days of Muhammad. So here we are. You can have fun with the girls, and
Fun.
yeah, that's for them it's fun.
It's just horrible even to think the atrocities they committed, what they did to these women, to these girls. It's so sick, so
Look,
perverse,
in
and then murdering them.
in Western mindset, it is sick and sickening and tremendous things. In the culture of the Middle East, this is the more or less usual thing. This is what people do in Syria. You know, the uprising which started in 2011, the Arab Spring. How do you think the local authorities, the authorities in Syria, treated the rebels the same way? In Iraq, the same way. Darfur, in Sudan. This is the culture of the Middle East, unfortunately. Woe to the losers. And this is based on long history of tribalism. Because, look, you have to understand the mindset. Here in the Middle East, it's not only Islam plays a role. It's also the tribal, the social heritage, which preceded Islam many, many years. This area is a desert, giant desert, all the way from Morocco in the west to Iraq in the east, from Syria in the north to Yemen in the south. 98% of the Middle East is a dry, arid desert. And in the desert, if you want to survive, you need a source of water. And if your source of water is dried out, what do? You go to another place where they have a water, and you fight them in order to take the water. Otherwise, you will die. And therefore, the fight over water in the Middle East, I'm talking about for thousands of years already, is a fight, you know, for death and life. So, in order to deter the others, you have to be vicious. And they have to know that nobody should mess with you, because you will slaughter them, you will rape their daughters, you will do to them whatever they don't like to be done in order to deter them. So they leave you alone with your water. And therefore, this cruel attitude between people in the Middle East is well known. You know, Gaddafi in Libya, the name of his tribe, Gaddafi is an adjective. The name of his tribe was Gaddafi Dam, which means in Arabic, the one who sheds blood, not his own, the others. And according to all the stories in Libya, they got their name for a good reason, because this was a small tribe which was forced to treat its enemies in such a way in order to deter them. So here, cruelty in the Middle East is the name of the game. And you know, if in modern times it was translated to the idea that, or to the rule that if you shoot the second, you don't shoot anymore ever, because you are dead already.
Well, you get the bullet.
This is why violence is a very immediate tool to use, because you cannot allow yourself to be nice when the others are violent. You have to be violent before them.
Now, Mordechai, I saw in the news that...
And add to this,
yes,
that Islam took this violence and gave it a religious seal of approval. Now the Muslims are united, they don't fight each other, and now they can direct the violence to the others, to the infidels. And according to Islam, Allah gave the Muslims the lands of the infidels, the property of the infidels, the life of the infidels, and the girls of the infidels. So raping the girls is only natural.
So coming back, I saw in the news that Jordan, just a few days ago, announced red lines that if any Palestinian Arab would have to leave their quote-unquote territories, that's a red line for the war, that Jordan would enter the war. Do you think this will happen, or is it just rhetoric?
To say it mildly, the Jordanian kingdom, or the Jordanian royal family, actually breathes from the Israeli lungs. They get water from us. Without the Israeli water, they are thirsty. They don't have sources of water by themselves. All the flights which come from the West, from Europe or America, which pass above Israel, will be cancelled. Nobody will come to Jordan. It will be isolated. Because from Iraq, nobody flies above Iraq. It's too dangerous. So they will pay a giant price if they enter a war with Israel.
So they're trying to just make a show?
This is only, I don't think that anyone in Israel takes seriously.
Now, as we are concluding this broadcast, our friends in many, many countries have been standing on the streets, demonstrations, pro-Israel demonstrations. We've been seeing the tables set for the hostages. People have been praying. There's been many fantastic events taking place in a very hostile atmosphere. Because at the same time, or the other weekend, there is a pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas demonstration in the university campuses. Hundreds of thousands of people are demonstrating pro-Hamas.
We saw big demonstrations in London.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, do you think these European people understand the danger they are facing?
They do understand. The governments, the European, the Muslims are on the other side, usually. The Europeans, and it's unprecedented, that not only the United States of America is behind Israel now, also Britain, France, Germany, and more countries in Western Europe. They understand the essence of this war. This war is a war between civilizations, between the Judeo-Christian civilization, which looks forward, looks for good life, looks for normal life, looks for stability, health, and whatever human being needs, and against the 7th century culture.
Yeah.
It's between normalcy and barbarism. It's between people who look at the human as somebody who has rights and people who see the right of the human being only to sacrifice himself on the altar of Allah. And this is the struggle today. And Europeans understand it. And in my view, also the Americans, on both sides of the political aisle, understand it. Because they know, especially the Europeans, that if Israel fails to defend itself in front of the jihadists, they are the next, the Europeans. Because the jihadists will be so encouraged, and the jihad glands in their bodies will be so big that they will go to Europe. And the Americans know that the Atlantic Ocean is not wide enough to keep them safe from the same problem. And this is why this feeling actually united the United States and Western Europe. Eastern Europe is anyway with us because they know the danger. Western Europe, maybe it's a wake-up call for them after they surrendered to the invasion of so many people who do not want to convert their culture to be Western culture. They came to Europe to work, to settle, many of them, and to turn the European lands into their homeland, Islamic homeland.
So Israel is the front line for Europe,
Normalcy.
for United States, and that's why it is so important that you pray for the peace of Jerusalem, because by praying for the peace of Jerusalem, you are praying actually for the peace in the whole world. And again, you remember the promise of the Bible, they will prosper who love Jerusalem. So from Jerusalem, we wish you shalom, and tune in again every day, 1 o'clock Israel time, Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast.